Everything you thought you knew about Gen V might be wrong. Episode 6 could flip the entire story upside down because hidden clues from Episode 5 suggest secret motives, betrayals waiting to happen, and shocking reveals that no one is ready for. The question isn't just who survives, but who's been pulling the strings all along. Episode 5 left us with chaos, but Episode 6 is where the truth could start breaking through. Let's look at the survival theories first, because fans are still debating who actually made it out alive. One of the biggest questions is whether certain characters who look like they were done for might actually be alive in secret. Gen V has already shown us that death isn't always the end. Vought's experiments with Compound V and their hidden labs have made it possible for the company to manipulate life and death in ways that no one fully understands. This means that just because a character looked finished doesn't mean they're gone for good. Think about the little details we saw in Episode 5. A glance here, a cutaway shot, there moments that didn't feel accidental. Shows like this don't waste screen time, and when the camera lingers on a character or an unexplained event, it usually means the writers are planting seeds for something bigger. Fans noticed background hints like emergency lights flickering in a strange rhythm, or certain props placed carefully in the frame. These moments might not mean much on the surface, but in a show that thrives on foreshadowing, they could signal survival or a hidden twist. Another major point to consider is motive. Characters in Gen V are rarely what they seem. We've already seen allies turn on each other, and heroes who aren't really heroic at all. Episode 6 could be the moment when someone we trusted reveals their true plan. For example, if one of the students has secretly been working with Vought, Episode 6 is the perfect time for that mask to fall. The betrayal wouldn't just shock the audience, it would raise the stakes for the rest of the season, showing that the students are fighting enemies not only outside their circle but inside it too. And then there's the question of redemption. Some characters who made terrible choices earlier in the season could use Episode 6 to show a different side. In shows like The Boys, redemption is never clean or easy. It usually comes with blood, sacrifice, and consequences. Imagine if one of the so-called villains decides to flip sides, but at a cost so heavy it changes the group dynamic forever. That kind of twist would keep fans talking long after the episode ends. All of this builds to one key idea. Episode 6 won't just be about survival in the physical sense. It will be about survival of trust, loyalty, and identity. Who can you really count on when the system is designed to break you? And more importantly, who's still hiding their true face, waiting for the perfect moment to strike? If there's one thing we've learned from Gen V and The Boys, it's that Vought never shows its full hand. They always have a plan within a plan, and Episode 6 could be the moment where we finally see just how deep their experiments go. Vought isn't just about selling superheroes like celebrities. They are about control over power, control over image, and control over the future of humanity itself. And the hints sprinkled throughout Episode 5 suggest that something much bigger is happening behind the walls of their labs. Let's rewind to what we already know. Vought has been experimenting with Compound V for years. They've created soups, ruined lives, and built entire empires off it. But Gen V revealed a darker truth: the company isn't just creating superheroes, they're creating weapons. Soups who can be manipulated, trained, and unleashed when Vought needs chaos or order. That means the students aren't just experiments, they're prototypes. Episode 6 might reveal exactly which students were designed for a bigger purpose and which ones were meant to be discarded. Think about how carefully Vought manipulates narratives. They don't only experiment on bodies, they experiment on stories. Every time something goes wrong, Vought is quick to spin the news, clean up the mess, and turn tragedy into propaganda. If Episode 6 pulls back the curtain, we could see that the chaos at Godolkin University wasn't just an accident. It may have been staged. Every fight, every betrayal, every breakdown could be a piece of Vought's puzzle. They don't want uncontrolled power, they want to engineer power they can predict. Here's where it gets interesting. Episode 5 hinted at surveillance. Cameras in places they shouldn't be, files that didn't add up, and whispers about deeper monitoring. This means Vought hasn't just been testing physical abilities, they've been studying behavior. Which student fights hardest under pressure? Which one breaks down when manipulated? Which one inspires loyalty? These aren't random questions, they're research. Episode 6 could expose the results of that research, showing us that everything so far was an audition for a much deadlier stage. And what about the experiments no one has seen yet? We've been introduced to some horrifying powers already, but it feels like Vought is holding back its most dangerous creations. The possibility of new characters or even monsters emerging in Episode 6 is huge. Remember how the boys always raises the stakes by introducing soups who are more unstable, more violent, and more unpredictable than the last. Gen V is setting up that same pattern. Episode 6 could deliver the reveal of an experiment so twisted it shocks even the students who thought they'd seen it all. But let's not forget the bigger picture. Vought's obsession with control goes beyond just Gen V. There's a reason. The show keeps weaving in connections to the boys. Episode 6 could make those links clearer by showing us how the experiments at Godolkin tie directly to the larger game Vought is playing across the world. Maybe they're preparing a new generation of soups for Season 4 of The Boys. Maybe they're creating soldiers instead of heroes. Or maybe, and this is the scariest thought, they're building a world where no one has power unless Vought allows it. One more layer to consider is manipulation through fear. Vought has never hesitated to use fear as a weapon. If the students in Gen V start realizing they're trapped in a bigger experiment, Episode 6 could explore what happens when fear replaces trust. A group that already struggles with loyalty could completely fracture, leaving Vought in the perfect position to pick up the pieces. After all, what's easier to control than people who don't even trust each other? So what does all of this mean for Episode 6? It means we should expect revelations. Maybe files are leaked. Maybe a secret recording is discovered. Maybe a character finally sees proof that everything they've been through was engineered by Vought. The shock of that discovery would completely change the direction of the show. Instead of just surviving, the students would now be fighting to expose the truth. And knowing Vought, that's exactly what the company doesn't want. Episode 6 could be the turning point where the heroes stop being pawns and start becoming threats. And the question then becomes, will Vought eliminate those threats? Or will they twist them into something even worse? Every time Gen V drops a new episode, fans immediately ask the same question. How does this connect to The Boys? Episode 6 has the potential to finally answer that. Because while Gen V is about young soups struggling at Godolkin University, the shadow of the Seven and Vought's empire looms over every scene. The connections aren't just Easter eggs, they are the foundation for something bigger. If Episode 6 gives us even a single glimpse into these crossovers, it could change how we view both shows moving forward. One of the most obvious links is Homelander. Even when he isn't on screen, his presence is everywhere. He represents the endgame of what Vought is trying to create, the perfect weapon dressed up as a savior. Episode 6 could reveal that Godolkin isn't just a random training ground, but a laboratory designed to create the next Homelander. Think about that. All the chaos, all the blood, all the betrayals. What if it's simply a brutal test to see who can survive and rise to the level Vought needs? If that's the case, then Episode 6 could quietly plant the seed that one of these students might play a massive role in The Boys Season 4. Another potential crossover lies in the way information is being controlled. In The Boys, we've seen characters like Huey and Starlight risk everything to expose Vought's lies. Gen 5 is setting up a similar storyline where the students are beginning to question their reality. Episode 6 might be the first time they uncover concrete proof that their struggles are connected to a larger cover-up. And if that happens, it's almost guaranteed that The Boys Season 4 will pick up those threads. Imagine Starlight learning about what's happening at Godolkin, or worse, imagine Homelander himself taking an interest in the survivors. We also can't ignore the possibility of cameos. The Boys has never shied away from shocking surprises, and Gen V is following that same formula. Episode 6 could deliver a brief appearance from a familiar face, someone who ties the two storylines together in a single moment. It doesn't even need to be a major scene. A news clip, a shadowed figure, or even a voice recording could be enough to make fans realize that the events of Gen V aren't just side stories, they're directly feeding into the next season of The Boys. And let's talk about themes. Both shows explore power, corruption, and the price of control, but Gen V adds another layer, identity. The students are still discovering who they are, while The Boys has always focused on what happens when identity is erased by celebrity and propaganda. Episode 6 could act as the bridge between those ideas. It could show us how the young Supes are at risk of being molded into the same monsters that already exist in The Boys. That connection isn't just clever writing, it's heartbreaking storytelling. Because it reminds us that in Vought's world, no one really gets to choose who they are. Here's a bold prediction. Episode 6 may drop a direct setup for a storyline that runs straight into The Boys Season 4. Maybe it's a new weapon Vought is developing. Maybe it's a character who defects from Godolkin to join or fight the main cast of The Boys. Or maybe it's something even bigger, like the reveal of a project that threatens not just the students, but the entire world. If Gen V pulls that trigger, fans won't just be watching episode 6 for answers, they'll be watching for clues about what comes next in The Boys. Another angle worth considering is the political side of the universe. The Boys has always tied its chaos to real-world power, governments, corporations, and media. Gen V has hinted that Godolkin is part of that larger network. Episode 6 could give us a taste of how deep those connections go. A senator making a shady deal, a government official observing the tests, a leaked file showing that Washington knows about the experiments. If that happens, The Boys Season 4 might not just deal with Homelander's reign of terror, it might deal with the fallout of what was uncovered at the university. Finally, we have to talk about timing. Gen 5 and The Boys aren't being released separately by accident. The writers know exactly how to weave these stories together so fans feel like they're watching one giant narrative. Episode 6 could be the pivot point, the moment where Gen V stops being the spin-off and becomes the missing puzzle piece for The Boys Season 4. By the time the credits roll, fans might realize that everything happening with the students is directly tied to the storm that's about to hit in the main series. So when you watch episode 6, don't just pay attention to the battles and betrayals. Watch the background. Listen to the whispers. Notice the news reports, the small lines of dialogue, and the subtle clues. Because hidden in those moments might be the proof that Gen V isn't just telling its own story, it's building the next chapter of The Boys. Every great show feeds on fan theories, and Gen V is no exception. After episode 5's explosive cliffhangers, the internet has been buzzing with wild ideas about what episode 6 could deliver. Some theories feel almost too out there to be true. But in a universe as twisted as Gen V and The Boys, even the craziest predictions deserve attention. Episode 6 could be the stage where fan speculation collides with reality. And it's worth breaking down the most popular and most shocking theories before it arrives. One of the biggest theories floating around is the double agent twist. Many fans believe that at least one of the students isn't who they seem. This isn't just paranoia, it's backed by small details sprinkled across earlier episodes. Suspicious glances, conversations cut off too quickly, and unexplained knowledge about Vought's plans all point towards someone secretly working with the company. Episode 6 might finally unmask this traitor, setting off a chain reaction of mistrust inside the group. If that happens, fans will see not just betrayal, but the heartbreaking moment when trust within the team completely shatters. Another fan favorite is the secret survivor theory. People are convinced that a character who seemed to be eliminated in episode 5 is still alive, hidden away by Vought for further experiments. This fits perfectly with Vought's track record. They never waste valuable assets. If episode 6 brings back a supposedly dead character, it wouldn't just shock the audience, it would send a clear message that no one's fate in this universe is certain. Fans love this idea because it adds tension. Anyone could return, and nothing can be trusted. Then there's the weaponized soup reveal prediction. The community has speculated that Vought isn't just training students for show, but actively creating living weapons designed for political and military use. Episode 6 could introduce one of these finished products, a soup who's less of a person and more of a controlled machine. Imagine the horror of the students realizing that while they've been struggling with their identities, Vought has already perfected a cold, obedient soldier. This would not only terrify the group, but also lay the groundwork for a massive showdown later in the season. Of course, fans also want crossover moments. And one bold prediction making waves is the Homelander cameo theory. The idea is that episode 6 might feature even the briefest appearance from Homelander, reminding viewers that the chaos at Godolkin is being watched by the world's most terrifying figure. It doesn't have to be a long scene, just a headline, a TV clip, or even his voice could send chills down viewers' spines. Fans are pushing this theory because it would tie Gen V even tighter to the boys, raising excitement for what's to come. Another unique theory that fans can't stop talking about is the student becomes the villain twist. Instead of introducing an outside threat, episode 6 might reveal that one of the core characters is on the path to becoming the true antagonist. This isn't far-fetched. The boys' universe loves to blur the line between hero and villain. If a beloved character suddenly turns dark, it wouldn't just shock viewers. It would completely reframe the season, forcing the audience to question whether redemption is even possible in this world. And then there's the boldest prediction of all, the Escape from Godolkin arc. Fans are theorizing that episode 6 might mark the start of the students breaking free from the university's grip. Up until now, Godolkin has been a prison disguised as a school, and the students have been pawns in Vought's experiment. Episode 6 could be the breaking point, where the survivors realize they need to escape if they ever want to be free. The risk of this theory is high. Vought doesn't let anyone walk away easily. But if the group does attempt an escape, it could lead to one of the season's most dramatic and violent cliffhangers yet. What makes all these theories so powerful is that they're not just guesses, they're reflections of what fans want to see. Some want shocking deaths, others want jaw-dropping cameos, and many want answers that tie Gen V directly into the boys. Episode 6 has the chance to deliver all of that and more. And if it does, it could go down as one of the most talked about episodes in the entire franchise. So the bold prediction: expect episode 6 to end with a twist no one saw coming. Maybe it's a betrayal, maybe it's a survival reveal, or maybe it's the first step toward the war that will carry straight into The Boys Season 4. Whatever it is, one thing is clear: the theories won't just stay theories for long, because in Gen V, the truth is always stranger, darker, and bloodier than anyone imagines.